October 22nd, 1934, East Liverpool, Ohio. In a cornfield off the highway, a man who'd been called everything from a modern-day Robin Hood to public enemy number one lay dying on a couch. Some said he was a cold-blooded bank robber. Others swore he was a hero, burning mortgage papers during robberies so struggling farmers could keep their land. To the FBI, he was a fugitive who left bodies in his wake. But to his neighbors, he was just the Oklahoma boy who never forgot where he came from. This is the story of Charles Pretty Boy Floyd, killer or Robin Hood. Hey, y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends in Togo.
It's
in West Africa. Nagasana.
Very nice.
There you go.
Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who are just like you and love true crime can find us.
Yep.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you want true crime with us all the time, please go join our closed Facebook group, the In-Laws and Outlaws. We're growing by leaps and bounds. Lots of new people in there every single week.
Yes, we are.
Go to Facebook and type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws. Answer a couple questions. You are in. Go join. Somebody joined this past week and they were like, I have found my people. It's like, welcome to your new family.
Welcome home.
I do post lots of photos and other information in there as well. It's a great group of folks. You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. We also have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob, the redhead, some coffee. He drinks it every single episode. And just before we got started, he was hacking up a lung and drinking coffee at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm trying to balance a cup of coffee and a dog in my arms.
Story of our lives.
Exactly. And for those of you that are on YouTube, yes, he is in dire need of a haircut.
And only his dad can cut his hair.
Yeah,
He's a little traumatized. He's a rescue.
Yeah. Real quick story. When we first got him, I took him to get him groomed because he was a little mongrel. And they called me. This was during COVID, so, I couldn't go in with him. They took him in. I was on my way home, and they called me on my way home and said,
"Come get him."
Yeah, we can't cut him.
Yeah.
So they said, we'll get to our experienced cutter who deals with dog like that. I was okay. So I took him back a week later.
He wasn't having it.
He wasn't doing it. So I actually learned to groom a Yorkie.
There you go.
Yeah.
And now you know why he looks like what he looks like. Yeah. He's still a little scoundrel.
Yeah.
But you can find that link to the Buy Me a Coffee in our show notes. I don't even know where I left off.
And yet I digress.
You can also send us a text. The link to that is at the top of the show notes where it says send Chris and Rob a text. I'm going to gather a bunch of those together and put them all together next week and then give you a bunch of them.
All right.
This case, I love this guy.
Yeah.
He was a killer, but if there was ever a nice killer...
Yeah.
It's Charlie.
Well, I love this whole era, the Bonnie and Clyde, the Pretty Boy Floyd, all these people. It's just going to sound weird. It was like a romantic era, for criminals.
Right. I honestly think in another life, I was like a gangster's girlfriend. I was a flapper, some gangster's girlfriend. I probably got killed in a shootout because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, which is why I love true crime.
Yeah.
Before I get started, let me thank some sources: oklahomahistory.org, fbi.gov, biography.com, News Interactive, The Post Gazette, carnegielibrary.com, Time Magazine, aphfmuseum.com, Britannica, the encyclopedias.
Brotanica.
The bros. Only the bros are in those editions of the encyclopedias.
Yeah.
The Life and Death of Pretty Boy Floyd by J.S. King, the Oklahoma Historical Society, Wikipedia, FBI. I already said FBI.gov. Listen, y'all, I'm off to the races right
Say it
now.
again.
I went to FBI.gov a lot researching this one.
Well, then it deserves 2 mentions.
As well as many others. There are lots of sources that I use for these podcasts. You can find them all with just one click of the little link in the show notes. They'll all show up. But I'm giving you the highlights.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Charles Arthur Floyd is born on February 3rd, 1904, near Adairsville in Bartow County, Georgia. He's the second son and fourth child of 6 surviving children. I like when you get into this era, it's always like, there were 10 kids, but there were 6 who lived because so many people, would miscarry all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, and children just didn't survive all the time.
Right.
If you go to old cemeteries, you can see all the little kids that are in there. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
But he's the 4th of 6 surviving kids. His parents are Walter Lee Floyd and Helena Eccles Floyd. His parents could trace their lineage back through 3 centuries of Welsh settlers. They fled the hills of northwestern Georgia in 1911 because they were in search of opportunities farther west. So like many young families back then, the Floyds, they take to the road, they pack up their car, they've got young Charlie with them, and they are joined by family and friends in Sequoyah County in eastern Oklahoma. And that is right near the Arkansas border.
Okay.
Charlie was raised in this small farming community called Aikens, Oklahoma, which is really close to the Cookson Hills. Now, Charlie is a popular kid. He's full of life. He's very bright, lots of mischief. When he's a kid, he works really long hours, like tough hours, because they grow corn and cotton. And as you might imagine, a little kid, he's working these long hours in the fields, and he's thinking, this is what I do not want to do with the rest of my life.
We had a big garden. I lived out in the country, and we had a big garden, and I always looked forward to school summer vacation, but yet I dreaded it because I knew I had to have my butt out there weeding this garden.
Working in the garden. Well, and even if you weren't working in the garden, if you were slinging burgers or fries or like me working in retail, you're like, I got to finish school and I got to go to college because I'm not doing this for the rest of my life.
I think that's why our parents made us do that stuff.
It's true. It's true. Charlie will make it through the 6th grade, speaking of education. And when he's done, he's like, I'm finished 6th grade. I got a 6th grade education. I'm done.
I'm out of here.
And I read that at the time that was considered adequate. So if you could read, write, and add, subtract, multiply, divide, it's like, what else do you need? Yep. You're good. You're good to go.
What they call it, the 3 R's, read, write, and arithmetic.
Yeah. And I'm still wondering if I used all that advanced math if I ever have in my life.
Well, I know that, I can figure out if a train leaves New York at 5 o'clock and another train leaves at 3 o'clock from Oregon, how many bushels of corn will I have at the end of August?
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's an SAT question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But so he's finished with school, but he did like stories. Just like me, he loved stories, and he loved hearing tales about outlaws. Again, just like me. He loved the tall tales of outlaws, and the one he liked to hear about the most was Missouri Bandit. You want to take a guess?
Jesse James.
Jesse James.
There you go. Look at me.
Now, on these farms, it's not just corn and cotton. They learn how to make corn liquor, which is moonshine. Mm-hmm. And we make some pretty good moonshine here in Kentucky. By the way, it's going to burn your lips off.
Yeah.
Rob and I went to, when I was writing a book called Sex, Lies, and Bourbon, which is in a series that I have called the Sex and Lies series, we went to the Maker's Mark distillery and did the tour, went into the back and everything, and they pulled out how it starts with the moonshine or with the pure grain alcohol.
Yeah.
And they passed around this little
ladle,
and they were like, "Hey, everybody, just take a little sip and pass it down." I'm like, "I don't want to drink after these people." And I even said, I was like, "What about cold and flu season?" And he was like, "Honey." Anything that's in there it's dead.
Yeah.
It's gonna kill it once it touches your lips. And as soon as I put it to my lips, my lips were numb for like the next 45 minutes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So good moonshine.
It was pretty severe.
Moonshine's pretty good. Yeah.
Especially apple pie moonshine.
Yes, that's true. We have had a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But Charlie's dad spent most of his time trying to stay one step ahead of the bank and foreclosure on their family farm. That's called foreshadowing.
Let's see if I can do with Scotty in my hands. Ready, bud?
Yes.
And I even did that with my right hand.
You're just that good, honey.
I'm amphibious.
Ambidextrous, you mean?
I'm amphibious. Don't you remember that commercial? Or not the commercial, that spot where they were interviewing the sports guy. He was talking about his dexterity when he's playing basketball.
Oh, and he said, "I'm amphibious."
I'm amphibious.
Yeah, he had a 6th grade education just like Charlie.
I love that.
There you go.
Anyway, go ahead.
They had droughts, plagues, dust storms, and all of this brought farm production to a halt. Rob's even done a documentary on like the Dust Bowl way out west.
Yep.
But these farmers are actually starving. The land is giving them nothing, and Mother Nature is punishing them over and over again. And Charlie's father, Walter, is just trying to keep the family fed and the bank off his back. Therefore, the family tried another way to make money, which was bootlegging. Yeah.
Okay.
And by the time Charlie is in his early teens, he's already got a nickname, and it's not Pretty Boy. His nickname is Chalk because he has a taste for Choctaw beer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say chalk and erasers.
Oh, 6th grade education, honey. It's a popular homebrew of the time. It's made of barley, hops, tobacco, and fish berries, and just a little bit of alcohol. And the fish berry is the seeds of Anamirta paniculate. Anamirta paniculate. There it is. I knew I'd get it eventually. And that contains amyloid picrotoxin. Amyloid picrotoxin. Y'all, help me out today. Lord, help.
You're on your own with this one.
This is actually used in vet medicine as an antidote to barbiturates. And it's called this fish berries because people used to throw these berries into the streams to poison or incapacitate the fish.
Oh, my God. And they're putting this in moonshine?
It's like fishing with dynamite. No, it's in Choctaw beer.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, were his lips
Yeah.
numb as well?
Wow.
Yeah. Now, by the time Charlie Floyd is 16 years old, he's had a couple of little scrapes with the law. But in 1921, when he's 17, he marries Ruby Hargrove. She's the daughter of a tenant farmer. And a few months later, they have a son, Charles Dempsey Floyd, nickname Jack.
Okay.
They name him after world champion boxer Jack Dempsey. Yeah. And just for reference, Jack Dempsey won the world heavyweight title on July 4th, 1919. He had 53 wins by knockout and 68 wins total. He had 85 fights.
Wow.
So who knows how many brain cells he has left after that.
Yeah.
But what a career.
Yeah.
What a career.
Yep.
So money is scarce. He's got a new wife and a baby to take care of.
Okay.
He's going to become a hired hand on the wheat harvest circuit throughout Oklahoma and Kansas. But remember, he's not really all that into hard work in the fields. So he's not making much money either. So he starts getting involved in a bootlegging operation and a few other illegal activities. I read where money was so scarce that when he left home to travel north to look for harvest work, that lots of nights he spent in hobo camps. And a hobo camp is a spot along the railroad tracks across the country. It's traveling homeless drifters, and they're called hobos, H-O-B-O, homeward bound.
Oh.
And now you know where the word hobo came from.
I can't wait for my next trivia bout.
That is a good trivia question.
It is.
These guys are simply workers that meander from place to place doing odd jobs, and that's where Charlie was staying, and that's what Charlie was doing. And while he's hanging out with these guys, he's learning all about the world of crime, how easy it was, how profitable it could be, and who some of the major players were in his area. Now remember, he's a big Jesse James fan.
Yeah.
When Charlie gets to Wichita, Kansas, he finds a criminal mentor. His name is John Callahan. And John Callahan is a figure draped in mystery who once operated the biggest fencing operation in the Midwest. And if you don't know what fencing is, that's somebody who knowingly buys stolen goods, then sells them for a profit.
So it's not an Olympic sport.
It's not. And plenty of mob guys have been doing this for years. It just makes me think of Goodfellas, where all these women are wearing furs and they're like, why are you wearing this fur? You're like drawing attention to us.
Right, right.
But he also meets John Fred Hildebrand, who sometimes went by the name John and sometimes went by the name Fred and sometimes Joseph. I mean, some of these guys had more than one name. But he's a thief who's just flat out hiding from the police. He's hiding from the law. My grandmother always called him the law.
The law.
Mm-hmm. Now, Charlie loved his wife. He was devoted to her and his new son, Jack, but he still hates being a dirt farmer. He really hates being poor. So Charlie trades 5 gallons of corn whiskey for a pearl-handled pistol. Oh. And then it all begins. Not long after buying the gun in 1922, and at the age of 18, he pulls his first robbery. Charlie held up a post office for $3.50 in pennies.
Okay.
Now, today that would be about $67.
Okay.
That's a lot of pennies.
It's a ton of pennies.
He's like carrying them out in bags. But if you think about it, how much was it to send a letter? It was pennies. Yeah. So that's what they had.
Sure.
He's not starting out the greatest, right?
He's getting warmed up.
But when the police think he's a suspect, his dad, Walter, gives him an alibi. And the witness who was supposed to testify in court that it was Charlie that they saw taking the pennies, well, they failed to appear. Yeah. And that was the end of that.
Wow.
In the mid-1920s, Charlie lives in East Liverpool, Ohio. He was a hired gun for bootleggers and rum runners along the Midland, Pennsylvania, and Steubenville, Ohio stretch of the Ohio River. This is the height of Prohibition and gangsters. Again, I think I had a past life doing this. I was in there somewhere in a flapper dress. But it's not until he leaves Ohio that he becomes famous. In the summer of 1925, when he's 21 years old, he jumped on a freight train that was headed east to St. Louis, where he stayed in a cabin on the Merrimack River with his buddy Fred Hildebrand, and there he meets Joseph Havelty. Okay. Yeah, it's an H-L-A-V, but it's Havelty. Joseph ran a store in the nearby Merrimack Highlands and the edge of what is now Kirkland, Missouri. Now, while staying in this cabin, Charlie, Fred, and Joseph's 16-year-old brother, and this boy's name isn't anywhere I could find, they meet 2 sisters, again, whose names are not in historical documentation. And these 2 girls will later say that they were sexually assaulted by the 3 men in the cabin by the Merrimack River.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming their names are kept out of everything because they are also minors.
Sure.
Charlie and Fred are both married and denied the accusations, as did the 16-year-old brother of Joseph. But all 3 were charged with statutory rape. And later the charges would be dropped because the 2 girls refused to testify in court.
Nobody wants to testify against these people.
Apparently. Yeah. But before these girls didn't show up, Joseph said that he needed to raise $800 in order to pay for his little brother's attorney. This is what motivated him to help Charlie and Fred with their big plan. On Friday, September 11th, 1925, Joe takes to the street with Charlie and Fred in his Haynes automobile. I love how these cars are like
Haynes.
A Haynes automobile.
I wonder what that is. I've never heard of a Haynes automobile.
I will post a picture of it in the In-Laws and Outlaws.
All right.
Their plan is to rob the Kroger Grocery and Bakery Company's payroll office.
Wow, I didn't realize Kroger had been around that long.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second.
All right.
But when police question the folks in the Kroger payroll office, one witness is going to describe Charlie as, quote, a pretty boy with apple cheeks, end quote, saying he was good looking and polite. Now, this is the same Kroger if you live in one of the 16 states where they have grocery stores like us. We have one not too far from our house, but Kroger's now headquartered, at the time and still is in Cincinnati. Ohio. Yeah. Right. But at that time, they had a regional office in St. Louis, and the first floor was a bakery, and the business offices were on the second floor, where the weekly payroll for the bakery workers was kept in cash. And it's Friday. It's payday.
Payday, baby.
These three steal a Cadillac from a chauffeur, and Joe drives that to the Kroger office at 39th and Vista. Charlie and Fred run into the building, take the stairs to the second floor immediately, and steal the payroll money. They confronted the payroll clerk and at least one other person who thought that he was just adorable and so good looking. They ordered them to hand over the money. I've read that it was $16,000. I've read that it was $11,000. Either way, in today's money, that's roughly $200,000 to $250,000.
That's a good payout.
And as they drive away, a St. Louis police officer sees what's happening, and he fires his gun at them several times as they peel away in the getaway cars, like, and these three quickly cross over the Mississippi River and into Illinois to avoid being captured immediately. Can't cross state lines.
Right.
They returned to Sallisaw, Oklahoma, where they were all born, and they begin to flaunt their new wealth. And just 4 days later, they're picked up in Sallisaw. Charlie, who was known to be as poor as a church mouse, was now driving around in a brand new car that he bought in Tulsa.
Oh, wow.
And when they searched his house, they found cash. Mm-hmm. Police bring Fred and Charlie back to St. Louis. Fred confesses to his role in the Kroger robbery and to several others, and he rats out Joseph, the getaway driver, who cooperates with the police. Now, Charlie gets a 5-year sentence in the Missouri State Pen in Jefferson City, Missouri. He's going to be out in 3. And as you might imagine, this doesn't bode well with his wife, Ruby. On January 4th, 1929, Ruby files for divorce, charging her husband, who is incarcerated at the time, with neglect. Well, it's pretty hard to take care of somebody if you're sitting behind bars.
Yeah.
Now, Charlie doesn't contest the divorce, and Ruby takes custody of 4-year-old little Jack. And when Charlie is released in March of 1929, just a few months after Ruby files, he knows he can't go home to be with her. So he heads towards Kansas City, throwing himself deeper into the criminal underworld. And through the years, Charlie's going to see his wife and son, and he's going to live with them off and on in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they were divorced. He still wants to see his son, sure. And when he does, he stays with his son and with Ruby.
Okay.
But after he's released in Jefferson City, he heads straight to Kansas City, where he reunited with a man that he met in prison, Alfred Red Lovett.
I bet he had red hair.
I'm thinking that he did. Or Fred, Alfred, the last three letters are red.
Could be.
On March 9th, 1929, 2 days later, he's released from prison. Charlie's picked up by the Kansas City Police Department for investigation. He's held for a bit, but then released. There's no record of what they were asking him. Most likely, it was, just a fishing expedition just to see what Charlie knew about any robberies.
Sure.
But they could just pick you up and hold you for investigation back then and keep you in prison for like 30 days or in jail for like 30 days.
Wow.
But now he's in Kansas City, or in what's called Tomstown at the time.
Just think, if I'd have been born in that era, we could have a Robstown.
Robstown, Redstown.
Yeah.
But Kansas City was known as Tomstown because of a man named Tom Pendergast.
Oh.
He was also known as TJ, but Tom was an American political boss who controlled Kansas City and Jackson County, Missouri. And under Tom's rule, Kansas City gained fame for openly flouting prohibition laws. So while most of the country was enduring like dry bars and speakeasies and covert drinking, Tom's influence allowed the city to flourish with nightlife and gambling and illegal liquor without the fear of ever being arrested.
Wow.
And in Tomstown, money, jazz, and booze flowed freely. Again, this is why I think it was a past life. A famous quote by Tom was, quote, "The people are thirsty," end quote. Hear, hear, Tom.
If we had Robstown, we'd just be sitting around playing guitars.
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. And watching World War II.
Yeah, exactly.
Documentaries. But Charlie's buddy Red helped him acclimate to life on the outside. I mean, he's only in for 3 years. I mean, how much has changed? I don't know.
Yeah, especially during that time.
But he got him into a place to live, and he introduced him to people who could make him a living in organized crime.
Yeah, I guess everybody's got to make a living.
In one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Then one day after he's just been to the barber, this is Charlie. Charlie goes to the barber. He's wearing a brand new suit and tie, and he's got money in his pocket because of a bootleg run. He's playing cards at Sadie Ash's boarding house, a notorious criminal hangout, and it's run by Sadie and her 2 sons. And this is where he meets Beulah. Beulah was the young, engaging wife of Wallace Ash, one of the sons. And according to widely accepted accounts, Beulah was charmed by Charlie's sharp appearance. The suit, the haircut, the wad of cash. Every girl's crazy about a sharp-dressed man.
Oh, yeah. Why do I immediately have an image in my head with the name Beulah? It's not of a very young, attractive woman.
She is pretty.
Yeah.
She's pretty.
Yeah, Beulah is one of those names.
Well, she also goes by, I think, Juanita, but I'm just going to call her Beulah.
Okay.
She out of the frying pan into the fire between Beulah and Juanita. No offense to anybody named Beulah or Juanita.
I think Beulah was like a name in a movie that just sort of characterized that. You know what?
It's the way it rolls off the tongue.
I'm just going to stop right now before I get myself into any more trouble. Okay, go ahead.
So Beulah places a glass of booze in front of Charlie, and then she sits down beside him and said, quote, "Hello, pretty boy. Where did you come from?" End quote.
Another pretty boy.
Yeah, everybody thinks he's pretty. And he is. He's really cute. Yeah. He really is a cute man. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. Mm-hmm. But this remark gave Charlie the nickname Pretty Boy, which stuck with him throughout his criminal career, even though personally he hated it. He hated being called Pretty Boy. And, of course, the FBI used it, but so did all of his criminal friends called him Pretty Boy, too.
And the papers and everybody
Yes,
else.
Well, the newspapers loved calling him that.
Oh, sure.
But he preferred to be called Charlie or Chalk. So Charlie, or Pretty Boy, as he's now going to be called, was smitten instantly with Beulah. He fell in love. Beulah, who's unhappy in her own marriage, begins an affair with Charlie. And after her husband Wallace discovered their affair, she divorced him and moved in with Charlie. May 6th, 1929, Charlie is arrested in Pueblo, Colorado, and charged with vagrancy. He's fined $50 and sentenced to 60 days in jail.
Wow.
Meaning he's charged with wandering around and not having a place to call home.
Man. Jeez.
But it's really just a way for the police to hold somebody that they suspected of criminal activity when they didn't have any concrete evidence.
Gotcha.
Now, today, your attorney would walk in and be like, are you charging him? And if not, we're leaving.
Yeah,
we're
right.
out of here.
Yeah.
November 1929, Charlie's father, Walter, dies, and he goes home to Hanson, Oklahoma for his father's funeral. He's been away for a bit, and what he discovers is that his father had been shot and killed in a feud with a neighbor man named Jim Mills.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, accounts differ, but there are sources that say Walter and Jim had a dispute over lumber at Mills's store. But Jim is never held accountable for the death of Walter from this fatal gunshot. I mean, he shot him.
Right.
And when Charlie hears about this, he takes his father's rifle and goes into the hills of Oklahoma. And Jim Mills was never heard of or seen again.
Gee, I wonder what happened.
Now, Jim's never charged with murder, but it was pretty well known that Charlie had taken care of business, so to speak, because Jim vanished after this incident.
Okay.
So whether it was of his own account or it was Charlie who took care of him, he's gone.
Right.
My bet's on Charlie.
You think?
I agree. In January of 1930, Charlie leaves Kansas City for Ohio, saying goodbye for the moment to Beulah Baird. He's joining the Jim Bradley gang. He met Jim at the Missouri State Penitentiary, and they had become friends during their stay. And when they reunite after they're both out, Jim remembers that Charlie is the common sense boy from Cookson Hills, and Jim Bradley is a very experienced bank robber, and other members of the gang were Nathan King and Nellie Maxwell, who was known nationally as an elusive shoplifter.
There's a reputation you'd love to have.
Nellie, five-fingered Nellie, apparently. She's just out there stealing stuff.
Wow.
For 3 months, this gang robbed and eluded roadblocks and car chases all through Ohio. But here's the thing. While robbing banks, which they did, Charlie, pretty boy Floyd, always wore a suit. He always showed his face, and he always made it a point, no matter which bank he's in, he would either burn or take entirely the mortgage loan papers.
Wow.
It's also known that at any given point, he was giving money to a dozen or more families in the area where he grew up.
So he was a Robin Hood.
There are lots of people who say this is exactly what happened. If you talk to some of the authorities or the FBI, they're like, you're just making stuff up.
Yeah, but it would make sense for him to do something like that because he knows that if he becomes sort of a folklore hero, that people are not going to try to turn him in.
Oh, you're so smart.
Thank you.
We're getting to that.
Cheers.
But it's the Depression, and people are starving and losing their land, and Charlie's helping out.
Yeah.
So Charlie, Nathan, Nellie, and Jim all used aliases. Charlie's was Frank Mitchell. And during these robberies of these banks, their best haul was $2,000 from the Farmers and Merchant Bank in Sylvania, Ohio on February 5th, 1930. But on March 8th, 1930, in Akron, Ohio, their luck runs out. Police spot two men who resemble Jim Bradley and Nathan King sitting in a car parked on the curb in the middle of downtown Akron, Ohio. They're robbing banks in the middle of downtown. A police officer, 31-year-old Harlan Maines, pulls up alongside the gang to ask some questions of Jim and Nathan, and the two of them took off like the devil through downtown Akron. They hit the gas, but they crashed into another car. And Nathan fell out of the car, and he takes off running, and Jim Bradley opened fire at that point. And he hits at point-blank range Officer Harlan Maines in the stomach. And Officer Maines shot back and hit Jim Bradley as he ran away before dying from this gunshot wound.
Wow.
So now they've killed a police officer, not Charlie, but some of his gang.
Right.
Later that afternoon, the police and a squad of detectives break down the door of the gang's hideout. Inside, they find a suffering Jim Bradley, because he's been shot. And who's tending to him? Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd. Also at the hideout is five-fingered shoplifting Nellie Maxwell. Inside the gang's hideout at 731 Lode High Street, the police find packed bags, so they had go bags, a machine gun with a clip of 150 bullets.
Wow.
It was wrapped in a blanket. They had 3 sets of license plates, Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. There was also a very expensive set of luggage. That had to be Nellie's.
Yeah, you think?
But they had nitroglycerin and rubber gloves.
Jeez.
And parked outside the hideout was a stolen car with the glass removed from the back window to make room for
Machine guns.
the machine gun.
Yeah. I wonder if they were using those Thompson machine guns, with a round cartridge.
I mean, I think this thing was so big, it was mounted in the back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. On the 24th of November, 1930, Jim Bradley was sentenced to death for killing Officer Harlan Maines. Nathan King, Nellie Maxwell, and Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd were sentenced to 15 to 20 years in the Ohio pen for their robbery spree, including the Sylvania, Ohio bank robbery.
Okay.
On December 10th, 1930, while en route from Toledo to the pen in Columbus, Ohio, Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd starts sweet-talking his guards. He talks his guards into uncuffing him because he needed to use the bathroom. Now, they're on a moving train,
right,
and he's got armed guards all around him. And his guards are thinking, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
So they take off Charlie's cuffs, and they allow him into the bathroom alone. 10 seconds later, they hear the sound of breaking glass. The guard breaks into the locked bathroom, but it's too late. Pretty Boy Floyd was gone.
Wow.
He had jumped from the moving train near Kenton, Ohio, just miles before reaching the penitentiary.
Wow. I wonder how fast this thing was going. Jeez.
I don't know, but he jumped. He was like, screw this.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
The alternative couldn't be that bad.
Well, can you imagine those guards? I mean, what are they going to say? Well, sorry, sir. We messed up. We took his cuffs off and let him go to the bathroom by himself.
Wow.
Just a little side note, when Jim Bradley is strapped to the electric chair on July 21st, 1931, there's a tall tale that said his last words were, quote, "If you think I'm tough, boys, wait till you get a load of that Floyd," end quote.
Wow.
In March of 1931, while Pretty Boy is on the lam, an old friend from the hills of eastern Oklahoma, George Birdwell, shows up. George was friends with Charlie's older brother Bradley while working in the oil fields in nearby Seminole and Earlsboro. After Charlie was released from prison in 1929, he visited Earlsboro to see his brother and met George in the process. And these two become friends, and in March of 1931, George joined Charlie. Now, at first, these two were business partners in a bootlegging operation, not necessarily robbing banks.
Okay.
But then they did start robbing banks as the Depression got worse and the opportunities to make money in the oil fields in Oklahoma essentially dried up. Now, Charlie and George's shared backgrounds, their mutual friends, and their experiences in Oklahoma's rough country laid the foundation for this partnership. And together, these two held up more banks than anyone in Oklahoma history.
Wow.
They successfully robbed 30 banks all through Ohio and Charlie's home state of Oklahoma. He was really popular with the public because he was widely believed to have been destroying all these mortgage papers. He either destroyed them or took them with him when he's robbing these banks. And this just basically erases the debts of many struggling farmers and homeowners. Yeah. And remember, his father struggled to keep the bank off of his back when he was growing up. Yeah. Now, Pretty Boy Floyd was liberating these debt-ridden folks of their mortgage papers. He would also share this money with others because he was protected by locals. Exactly what you said. He's giving out money and he's being protected by them. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a Robin Hood. And I do want to say again that there are those who say that this is a myth, that he never destroyed mortgage papers or gave out money, but I would like to think that he did. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the newspapers at that time certainly painted that picture. And everyone was always saying he was so handsome, he was so polite, he never wore a mask, he was never scary, nothing like that. Right. When the Kansas City brothers of Wallace and William Ash, remember them from the boarding house, when they are found dead with gunshot to the back of the head in a burning car in March of 1931, Pretty Boy Floyd was suspect number one. Mm. The brothers were chasing Pretty Boy and one of his partners, Willis, Billy the Killer Miller. Can you imagine being Willis, Billy the Killer Miller? Yeah. I'm Billy the Killer Miller.
It just doesn't roll off the tongue very well.
And they were thought to have been the killers. So Pretty Boy Floyd and Billy the Killer Miller killed the Ash brothers. Okay. Mostly because of Charlie's association with Wallace's ex-wife, Beulah, and now her sister, who was married to Wallace's brother, William, Rose. Rose left William for Billy the Killer Miller. Now, I don't know if he was actually their killer or not, but it added fuel to the fire and to the folklore of Charlie's career.
Yeah, it seems like he's getting bigger than life.
He is. Yeah. On April 16th, 1931, Pretty Boy Floyd, who was using the alias again, Frank Mitchell, is spotted in Bowling Green, Ohio, along with Billy the Killer Miller. I just like saying it over and over again. Sorry. Officer R.H. Kastner and Police Chief Carl Gallagher attempted to stop Charlie and Billy near the intersection of South Prospect and Claw Streets, but a gun battle broke out, and during the exchange, Officer Kastner was shot. Charlie is credited as the one person who did shoot Officer Kastner, and Billy the Killer Miller died during this shootout at the scene, while Charlie, Pretty Boy Floyd, escaped. Officer Kastner would die of his injuries 7 days later on April 23rd. In July of 1931, Special Agent Curtis Burks came to the Lusco Note flower shop on the north side of Kansas City, Missouri. Now, this flower shop was a front for bootlegging and criminal activity. And Agent Burks, along with a dozen other federal agents and local police, they raid this flower shop. And Charlie hides in a back room. And when the feds find him, they begin to search him. And while they're searching him, he pulls out a .45 caliber handgun and fatally shoots Agent Burks. And then he runs outside and shoots an innocent bystander and a Kansas City police officer before getting away. So he is a killer. Yeah. Now, during this time, Charlie is also implicated in several murders resulting from gun battles with law officers or other rival criminals. On April 9th, 1932, Charlie shot and killed Irv Kelly, an Oklahoma lawman and former sheriff turned bounty hunter for the Oklahoma Bankers Association. Wow. Irv set up an ambush hoping to capture Pretty Boy, who was going to meet up with his ex-wife, Ruby, and traveling with his partner, George Birdwell, near Bixby, Oklahoma. Okay. Now, after all, there was a price on Pretty Boy's head. So people were looking for him. These bounty hunters were looking for him. And I believe it was $4,000, which would be about $75,000 today. Wow. So worth chasing down. When Charlie, Pretty Boy, arrived early in the morning hours, a gunfight breaks out, and Charlie shot Irvin Kelly 4 times, killing him on the spot. But Irv did manage to fire back at Charlie, wounding him in the legs before he escaped, and George Birdwell escaped without harm. Now, Pretty Boy was hobbled for weeks after being shot, and he walked with a limp for some time afterward. But he kept a low profile while he was recuperating, and he relied on his friends and family to help with basic medical care. It just makes me think of Inglourious Bastards, where she gets shot and they take her to a vet.
Yeah.
And they hold the vet, at gunpoint, and they're like, take care of this. And he's like, I'm a vet. I'm not a doctor.
And then when Brad Pitt sticks his finger in.
Oh. And she's screaming.
You can see everybody in the theater just wincing.
Yes. By the fall of 1932, he was back in action with one of his most notorious robberies. On November 1st, 1932, he and George Birdwell robbed the Sallisaw State Bank in Charlie's hometown of Sallisaw, Oklahoma. They do it in broad daylight while his friends and family watched. It's like having your friends and family come to a piano recital, only they're robbing a bank.
Hey, y'all, we're going to go rob this bank this afternoon. You want to watch this?
Yeah. Charlie's reputation for politeness was widespread, and during his famous hometown robbery at the Sallisaw State Bank, even the bank head greeted him calmly. So, like, the manager of their bank is like, hi, Charlie.
We know why you're here.
Yeah. They had known him since he was a boy.
Wow.
And Charlie reportedly smiled and chatted with the staff, and he maintained order during the robbery and avoided any unnecessary violence. Now, contemporary press and local accounts frequently remarked on Charlie's respectful treatments of witnesses and bank employees, further fueling the, quote, Robin Hood legend, end quote, that surrounded him. And these traits were repeatedly referenced by locals and reporters, and Charlie's courteous conduct in these tense situations contributed significantly to the folk hero status he achieved through the Great Depression. Many who encountered him or merely saw him enter a bank remember him not just for his notoriety and daring, but for his handsome good looks and his surprisingly gentlemanly manner during his crimes.
Wow.
I mean, at least he was a gentleman.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's out robbing all these banks. And while he's doing this, the insurance rates for banks doubled.
I'm sure.
Nobody wanted to insure a bank in that area because they thought sooner or later Pretty Boy Floyd would be coming for the money.
Yeah.
And these tellers are just going to smile and hand it over.
Right.
Then things go wrong for Pretty Boy Floyd. And in order to tell you how, I need to tell you about another crime, the Kansas City Massacre. On the morning of June 17th, 1933, a man named Frank Nash, who is a federal prisoner at the time, is in the custody of several law enforcement officers. They're returning him to the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. He had escaped on October 19th, 1930. Now, it's important to know that Frank Nash is also known as a friend of Pretty Boy Floyd, Vernon Miller, and Adam Ricchetti. Frank Nash had a criminal record that went all the way back to 1913 when he was sentenced to life at the state penitentiary in McAlester, Oklahoma, for the murder of Nolly Humpy Wortman.
Why do they call him Humpy?
Humpy was one of Frank's criminal associates.
All right.
I don't know why they called him Humpy.
I don't think I want to know.
My guess is that early on in the 1900s, it wasn't what you think it was. Maybe he was bigger and they thought he was like Humpty Dumpty and they called him Humpy.
I'm going to go with that.
He was later pardoned after his sentence was reduced, and he convinced the warden that he wanted to join the army for World War I. So he's released in 1918. But in 1920, he was given a 25-year sentence at the same penitentiary for safecracking or burglary with explosives.
Wow.
That was the charge.
So I guess he didn't go fight in World War I.
No, he lied.
Yeah.
But he goes back to the penitentiary and he becomes a trusted inmate back at McAllister's state pen, and his sentence was reduced to 5 years for safecracking.
Okay.
He was released on December 29th, 1922. On March 3rd, 1924, Frank Nash and 3 members of the Al Spencer gang received a 25-year sentence at the U.S. Pen at Leavenworth for assaulting a male custodian, a mailman.
Wow.
Then, on October 10th, 1930, Frank escaped Leavenworth, simply walking out when he was assigned to an outside errand. He just disappeared. What sort of outside errand did they send him on?
Why would they send him on an outside errand?
I mean, he didn't even have to stow away in like a laundry truck or anything.
Hey, y'all, I'll be back.
And he just didn't return.
God.
The FBI launched an intensive search for Nash, which extended over the entire United States and even parts of Canada. And this goes on for 2 years.
Wow.
The FBI gathered evidence that indicated that Nash had assisted in the escape of 7 other prisoners from Leavenworth on December 11th, 1931. So not only had he escaped himself, he went back and helped other people get out.
Well, caring is sharing.
And sharing is love.
It is.
But what the feds discover is that Nash has a close association with a man named Francis Keating and his partner Thomas Holden and several other well-known gunmen who had participated in a number of bank robberies throughout the Midwest, and they were all cohorts of Frank Nash. And Keating and Holden were apprehended by FBI agents on July 7th, 1932 in Kansas City, Missouri. And what the FBI found out was that these two said that Frank Nash was receiving protection from his underworld contacts in Hot Springs, Arkansas. They give up their buddy. They give Nash up to the FBI. So based on this information to these federal agents, Frank Smith, F. Joseph Lackey, and McAllister, Oklahoma Police Chief Otto Reed locate and apprehend Frank Nash on June 6th of 1933 in a store in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So this brings me to why they have him. The FBI really, really wanted him, right?
Right.
They drove Nash to Fort Smith, Arkansas, where at 8:30 that night they boarded a Missouri Pacific train bound for Kansas City, Missouri. It was due to arrive at 7:15 a.m. on June 17th. So this is all leading up to this Kansas City massacre. This is who they're after.
All right.
Before leaving, the lawmen made arrangements to meet up with Reed Vettorelli, a special agent in charge of the FBI's Kansas City office, to meet them at a train station. And meanwhile, a number of outlaw friends of Frank Nash heard about his capture in Hot Springs, and they find out the time that the train is going to arrive with Frank and the feds in Kansas City, and they make a plan to free him. And here are the players and the guys who conceived and engineered the plan.
All right.
Richard Tallman Galatas, Herbert Farmer Doc Lewis Stacy, and Frank Malloy.
Okay.
Now, Vernon or Vern Miller was a notorious gangster, hitman, bootlegger, and bank robber. They all seem to go together, right? They did all these things together.
Yeah.
A man whose partners were famous gangsters like Harvey Bailey and George Machine Gun Kelly and Thomas Holden and Al Capone and Louis Lepke Bookholder.
I haven't heard of him.
He was also the guy who was supposed to be the main gunman that day. And while he's at Malloy's Tavern in Kansas City, he makes a bunch of phone calls reaching out to other gangsters, other people to help. And according to the FBI, 2 of those gunmen Vern asks are Pretty Boy Floyd and Adam Ricchetti. And according to the FBI, these 2 agree to help with his plan, and they head out to Kansas City. So they're calling in all these big guns. They're like, we're breaking Frank Nash out.
Right.
You got to show up to Kansas City, and we're going to meet this train.
Right.
On the way there, Pretty Boy Floyd and Ricchetti are detained in Missouri early in the morning of the 16th because they have car trouble. And while the 2 of them are waiting at a local garage for repairs to the car, Sheriff Jack Killingsworth, the sheriff's name is Killingsworth, enters the building And Ricchetti, who immediately recognized the sheriff, grabs a machine gun and holds the sheriff and the garage attendants against the wall.
Wow.
So I don't even know that the sheriff recognized him, but he recognized the sheriff.
Right.
And Pretty Boy Floyd drew two .45 caliber automatic pistols and ordered all of the people to remain motionless. Then Pretty Boy and Ricchetti transfer their arsenal of weapons from their car that isn't working into another car there at the garage. And they tell the sheriff to get in the car too. And then they drive to Deepwater, Missouri, get rid of that car and steal another. This is where they release the sheriff. Then they drive to Kansas City, arriving at about 10 p.m. on June 16th, the night before the Kansas City massacre.
Okay.
They meet Vern Miller and go with him to his home, and there Vern tells them the plan and how they're going to free Frank Nash the next morning.
Gotcha.
Early the next day, Vern Miller, Pretty Boy, and Ricchetti drive to the Union Railway Station in a Chevrolet sedan. There, they take up their positions and wait for Frank Nash and the FBI agents to arrive on the train. And when the train pulls into Kansas City, an FBI agent walks out to the loading platform. He leaves Frank Nash in a stateroom on the train with other men, but he wants to check to see if there's anybody around. He just wants to see if there's anybody out there that he's going to think is suspicious. Special agent in charge, Vettorelli, was accompanied by Police Chief Otto Reed, FBI agent R.J. Caffrey, and officers W.J. Grooms and Frank Hermanson of the Kansas City Police Department. There are two cars parked immediately in front of Union Station, and the feds want to get Nash off the train and into that car as fast as they can.
Right.
And two of the men transporting Frank Nash are armed with shotguns, and the other officers are carrying pistols. Now, Frank Nash gets off the train. He walks through Union Station with 7 officers of the law. And when he leaves Union Station, the lawmen and Nash pause briefly. They're checking again to see if anything looks suspicious. Then they walk to one of the cars parked immediately outside the east entrance of Union Station. It's R.J. Caffrey's Chevrolet that they're getting into.
Okay.
Now, Agent Caffrey unlocks the passenger door of the car, and when the door is open, Frank Nash starts to get in the back seat. But Agent Lackey tells Nash, get in the front seat of the car instead, and Lackey then climbed into the back of the car directly behind the driver's seat. And Agent Frank Smith sat beside him in the center of the back seat, and Chief Reed, the police chief, Reed, sat beside or behind Smith in the right rear seat. Okay. So they didn't put him in the back seat. They put him in the front seat. And I don't know if that was like some sort of, they're going to think that he's in the back seat, so we're going to put him in the front seat. I mean, I think they were expecting something bad to happen that day.
Their spidey senses were.
Yeah. A green Plymouth was parked about 6 feet away on the right side of Agent Caffrey's car. Looking in the direction of this Plymouth, Agent Lackey saw 2 men run from behind a car, and he noticed that both men were armed. And at least one of them had a machine gun. And before Agent Lackey had a chance to warn anybody, one of the gunmen shouted, quote, "Up, up," end quote. And at this instant, Agent Frank Smith, who's in the middle of the back seat, also saw a man with a machine gun to the right of the Plymouth. And Special Agent in charge, Reed Vettorelli, who was standing at the right front of the Chevrolet, turned just in time to hear a voice command, quote, "Let 'em have it," end quote.
Wow.
And the gunfire started to rain down on these agents. 15 feet away, diagonally from the Chevrolet, Agent Caffrey's car, an individual was crouched behind the radiator of another car, and he also opened fire. 29-year-old Officer William Red Grooms and Frank Hermanson immediately fall to the ground. They are dead. Special Agent in charge, Vettorelli, who was standing beside Officer Grooms and Hermanson, was shot in the left arm and dropped to the ground. He attempted to scramble to the left side of the car to join Agent Caffrey, who had not yet entered the driver's seat of the Chevy. Then Special Agent in charge, Vettorelli, sees R.J. Caffrey fall to the ground. He's been shot in the head. He is also dead. Inside the car, Frank Nash and Chief Reed are killed by bullets from the guns. Agents Lackey and Smith survived by crouching down in the back seat of the car, and Lackey was struck and seriously wounded by 3 bullets, but Smith wasn't hurt. And the men who were sent to save Frank Nash killed him. They killed everybody.
Wow.
The gunfire lasted only 30 seconds, and the people who did survive didn't know if there were 3 or 4 gunmen firing at them. And from their account, it was apparent that the 2 Kansas City police officers were killed immediately, followed seconds later by Frank Nash and then Agent Caffrey, who was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead on arrival. Now, the FBI is pissed. J. Edgar Hoover is pissed off.
I can imagine.
And they want to know who these gunmen were. The investigation developed evidence that the scheme was carried out by Vernon C. Miller, Adam Ricchetti, and Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd.
Yeah.
Now, this is important. The evidence they used included latent fingerprint impressions located by FBI agents on beer bottles in Vernon's Kansas City home and identified as those of Adam Ricchetti. So this is what they used to link both of them to the crime. But there are no fingerprints of Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd's fingers. Okay. So just his buddy, Adam Ricchetti. And they're like, well, if one's there, they're both there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that he wasn't there, but there are lots of people who believe he was not there on that day.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
The FBI goes on a manhunt for these men, including Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd. Charlie's only 29 years old at the time of this Kansas City massacre, and the authorities know he's got an extensive record of bootlegging and bank robbery and murder. Plus, he is still an escaped convict from when he jumped off the train.
Yeah, right.
They've never caught him.
Right.
Now, according to the FBI, after flying the coop on the Kansas City massacre, Pretty Boy Floyd and Adam Ricchetti go to Toledo, Ohio, where they meet up with Beulah and her sister Rose. So Beulah and Rose Baird in the early summer of 1933. So Rose apparently has left Billy the Killer Miller.
Wow.
And now she's with Ricchetti.
You need a program to keep track of all the players.
You know, it's almost like they're almost like WAGs, you know, the wives and girlfriends of sports people.
Yeah.
These are like the wives and girlfriends of gangsters. These 4 travel to Buffalo, New York. On September 21st, 1933, Pretty Boy and Beulah used the names of Mr. and Mrs. George Sanders, and Adam Ricchetti and Rose, her sister, used the name of Mr. and Mrs. Ed Brennan, and they rent an apartment in the city of Buffalo. Okay. Now, whether these 2 left to go to New York because of the massacre isn't really known, although the FBI to this day will still say that Pretty Boy Floyd was a part of it, and that's why they went after him. All I know is there's a lot of people who think that someone had to pay, and Charlie was associated with these people.
Right.
So it was kind of a let's go get anyone we think might know something or might have been involved.
Sure.
Charlie, Beulah, Adam, and Rose are all now living together in Buffalo in one apartment. And the 4 of them very seldom leave this apartment. They only go to the grocery store. And during the time that they lived there, Charlie reportedly walked from the front of the apartment to the back of the apartment constantly. So he's pacing all the time.
Right.
Can you imagine living below him?
Stop it.
Stop. That's when you get the broom out and you're like hitting the ceiling.
I was going to
Knock
say
it off.
the same exact thing. Yeah.
But people thought what was going on was weird. The 2 couples never visited with anybody else that lived in the building, none of their neighbors, but they were friendly toward the neighborhood children. In fact, it was known that Beulah and Rose would throw money from the window of the apartment to the kids who were playing in the street below.
Nothing like trying to keep a low profile.
Yeah. Now, it's widely believed that Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd joined the John Dillinger game when they held up the Merchants National Bank in South Bend, Indiana on June 30th, 1934. A cashier and the bank director both identified Pretty Boy Floyd afterwards by his photo. So even though he's in Buffalo, he's moving around. He's there, but he's not there.
Right.
Because Dillinger was in Chicago and under surveillance, right? Mm-hmm. And Anna, a brothel owner, didn't want to be deported. So she told the police and the feds where they could find him. Dillinger, Anna, and Polly Hamilton went to a movie on July 22nd, 1934 at the Biograph Theater, and after they watched a Manhattan melodrama, John Dillinger and the two women exited the theater where Agent Melvin Purvis was waiting.
The woman in the red dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Dillinger realizes it's a trap. He tries to escape. He reaches for his own gun, but he was shot by 3 federal agents, struck from behind by 3 bullets, the fatal shot severing his spinal cord and exiting under his right eye. And now that John Dillinger is dead, Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd is enemy number 1.
Wow.
A $23,000 bounty was offered for his capture, dead or alive. That's about $500,000 on his head. In October of 1934, the two couples agreed to return to Oklahoma, and Rose Baird was given money so she could go out and purchase a car for this trip. So they give Rose money. They're like, nobody really knows you, Rose.
Right.
Go buy a car.
Right.
And then we're going to drive home to Oklahoma. And Rose bought a Ford sedan. Now, the 4 of them pack up and they begin their trip early on October 20th, and Pretty Boy Floyd is actually driving. A few hours later, near Wellsville, Ohio, he skids the car into a telephone pole. And the guys get their guns out of the car and they remain on the outskirts of town while Beulah and Rose take the damaged car into a garage in Wellsville for repairs.
Okay.
Now, you grew up in a small town. Mm-hmm. I have lived in a small town. And in a small town, when people see somebody they don't know, they talk about it.
Absolutely.
And the Wellsville, Ohio Police Chief J.H. Foltz follows up on a report that there are 2 suspicious-looking men on the outskirts of town. So some little old lady called in and was like, there are these 2 men. They don't look like they belong here.
You know, I grew up out in the country, way out in the country, and the proof of that is whenever somebody would drive by our house, we would get up to look and see who it was. See that car going down the country road.
Who was that?
Yeah, exactly.
What are they doing here?
Yeah. I don't recognize that car. I wonder who that is.
So the police chief, he drives out and he finds these 2 suspicious-looking men. It's Charlie. He's just resting in the woods. And it's right then that a gun battle begins. Charlie and Adam Ricchetti see these cops and they start shooting. And after Ricchetti empties his gun while firing at the chief of police, he's apprehended. But Charlie escapes, and the police think that maybe they might have wounded him. The FBI and local authorities conduct an intensive search for Pretty Boy Floyd in eastern Ohio after this. So they've got Ricchetti, and they're like, Pretty Boy's with him somewhere.
Yeah.
He's enemy number 1,
Yep.
and we're going after him. And so they interviewed tons of people in this predominantly rural countryside, including doctors and hospital personnel, just in case Charlie had shown up.
Sure.
Because he'd been shot.
Right.
2 days later, on October 22nd, 1934, Ellen Conkle is alone in her isolated farmhouse when she hears a knock at the door. Ellen is a 41-year-old widow who lives in a rural section of Ohio about 40 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. Now, living in the middle of nowhere, she is unaware that a man described as a desperate and dangerous criminal has been spotted in the area. So when there's a knock at the door, she answers. And standing before her was a disheveled man about 30 years old wearing a blue suit and covered in thistles.
Yeah.
He had on scuffed black Oxford shoes, and she said he needed a shave. It's Charles Arthur Pretty Boy Floyd.
Wow.
And he says to her, quote, "I'm starving, lady. Can you help me out with food?" End quote.
Man.
He tells Ellen that he was hunting squirrels the night before and got lost.
In a suit.
In a suit. But Ellen knows this is a lie because, A, nobody hunts squirrels at night and not in a business suit with black Oxford shoes.
Right.
And when she questioned him again, he says, well, he was out hunting squirrels, and he was dressed the way he was because when he started hunting squirrels, he'd been drunk. Now, according to Ellen's account, she thought he had a wild look about him. He wasn't wearing a hat. And what kind of man didn't wear a hat? Yeah. That was what was in the newspaper. What kind of man didn't wear a hat?
That's funny.
Still, Ellen felt she couldn't refuse the man some food. She's a good Christian woman, right? Come on in.
Right.
She asked him what he wanted to eat. What would you like to eat? And he tells her that all he's been eating are apples. And he even had a couple in his pocket. And Ellen notices he has these bulges under his jacket and thinks that maybe he's carrying a gun. And this kind of makes her nervous.
Sure.
She was really wishing that her brother Stuart, who she was expecting, would hurry up and get to the house. But in the meantime, Ellen got busy in the kitchen, and she prepared a meal while Charlie sat on her porch and read her Sunday newspaper. She serves him spare ribs, rice, pumpkin pie, and coffee.
Man.
Charlie tells her that it was a meal fit for a king. He offers to pay Ellen, but she refuses. And he pulls out this huge wad of cash, and Ellen tells him, okay, I'll take $1.
Oh, gee. Ellen.
Good Christian woman.
Oh, come on. I don't care.
Charlie tells her he needs a ride to either Youngstown or to a bus station. And Ellen tells him she can't take him anywhere. She doesn't drive. But when her brother Stuart shows back up, he can take him.
Right.
So Charlie climbs into a Model A Ford that is parked in front of the house, and he sits there and he waits. And meanwhile, a group of FBI agents led by Melvin Purvis, the same guy who got Dillinger, along with a group of 4 East Liverpool police officers, they were all headed up by the chief of police, Hugh McDermott. They are jointly patrolling the roads in 2 different cars. So they were only in 2 different cars between the FBI and the police officers.
Jeez.
When Stuart, Ellen's brother, comes home, she's very relieved to see him, and Stuart does, in fact, agree to give the man sitting in his car a ride. And as the FBI agents and the police in the area, they're patrolling, the FBI notices a car moving from behind the corn crib on a farm. It's Charlie and Ellen's brother, Stuart. And the officers have been questioning all these people in an effort to question the occupants of this car. They stopped their own cars. And at this point, the Model A that they had drawn their attention to drove back into its original position behind the corn crib. It's like it came out and then it went back again. So I don't know if he pulled a gun on Stuart or if he just said back up.
Yeah, right.
But this car drove back to its original position behind the corn crib, and a man who the officers immediately recognized as Pretty Boy Floyd jumped from the car with a .45 caliber automatic pistol in his right hand. Now, Ellen can hear gunshots from her front porch, and when the officers reached Charlie, he said, quote, "I'm done for. You've hit me twice."
Oh, wow.
They took the pistol from his hand and also seized a second gun that he carried in his belt. Then 2 FBI agents left to summon an ambulance to take him to a hospital. While they're waiting, they take Charlie inside Ellen's home. His body was riddled with bullets. Now, he has said, "You've hit me twice."
Yeah.
But I've also read that he was hit 14 times.
Ooh.
So his body's riddled with bullets. His clothes are soaked in blood. Someone yelled, get a doctor. But it was too late.
Sure.
Charles Arthur, Pretty Boy Floyd, public enemy number 1, died at 4:25 p.m. on Ellen Kunkel's couch. In his dying breath, Charlie denied any involvement in the infamous Kansas City massacre. So as he's dying, he says, "It wasn't me. I wasn't a part of the Kansas City massacre."
Yeah.
On his body, they found a pocket watch and a fob, and each were engraved with 10 marks, one for every person he killed. So like notches on a bedpost, he had notches on his watch.
Wow.
The watch did, in fact, have these 10 notches. The FBI has corroborated this. But some historians say that the specific number of people he killed and the meaning of the notches could have been a part of something only he really knew about.
Right.
His partner, Adam Ricchetti, was returned to Kansas City on March 1st, 1935. He was indicted on 4 counts of murder for the Kansas City massacre. He died in the gas chamber at the Missouri State Pen on October 7th, 1938. And what of Rose and Beulah Baird, who were just waiting in the Wellsville garage with the wrecked car?
They're still there.
When Adam was taken into custody and Charlie runs off, they left immediately for Kansas City, Missouri. But first, they both traveled to Sallisaw, Oklahoma, where they attended the funeral of Charles Arthur Floyd. I've seen the pictures of this. There were so many people at this funeral.
Wow.
It was crazy. The man Beulah loved, she went there to say goodbye to him.
Right.
So was he all bad? Did he rob banks and give to the poor in the communities? Did he really take mortgage papers or destroy mortgage papers to help out these struggling farmers? Did he have anything to do with the Kansas City massacre? Well, we only know what he actually did do, which was rob banks, and he did kill a couple of people. They were mostly officers, one innocent bystander.
Right.
But that is the story of Charlie Pretty Boy Floyd, and that's all I have to say about that. For nearly 7 years, Jane Doe has lived in the shadows, her past buried deep beneath layers of secrecy and silence. After completing more than was asked of her in her last assignment for the enigmatic Kywolf Project, Jane Doe vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of dead bodies and unanswered questions. But now, as the specter of her past returns with a vengeance, Jane finds herself thrust back into a world she thought she left behind forever. When her former sins come knocking on her door, Jane is faced with an impossible choice: continue to hide in the shadows, or once again take up arms against the forces that threaten to tear apart the fabric of society. With enemies lurking around every corner and allies who may not be what they seem, Jane must rely on her wits, training, and her unyielding determination to survive. And while trust is a luxury she cannot afford, Jane must confront the truth about herself and her past. As the clock ticks, she realizes that the line between family, friend, and foe are razor thin, and in the end, the only person she can rely on is herself. Jane Doe 4 Charlotte is available September 24th, 2024. No name, no regrets, no mercy.
Okay, my take on this whole thing is that, folklore can get bigger as time goes on.
True.
So who knows how many people he actually killed and how many banks he robbed and this and that, especially during that era because, newspapers were sensationalized and things like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm not taking up for him at all because he was a horrible man. But who knows what the absolute truth was. The other thing I got to thinking about, too, is my grandmother, who was born in 1900, and she lived on a farm in Ohio, out in the rural area.
Yeah.
And she was, probably, 32, 33 years old at the time.
Could have been her.
Yeah.
It could have been her.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, there's a little town outside of Rob's hometown called Piqua. Mm-hmm. And when I was searching through all the old newspapers, there was a huge story on Pretty Boy Floyd in the Piqua newspaper.
Yeah. I should have said my grandmother and grandfather because they both lived out there. So anyway,
your grandfather would have been like, "That's Pretty Boy Floyd,"
exactly.
And your grandmother would have been like, "What a nice looking man."
Yeah, my grandfather said, "Can you help me clean out the chicken coop?"
But it does go to show you, people who look scary aren't always scary.
Yeah.
And people who are handsome aren't always good.
Yeah.
Look at Ted Bundy.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at Pretty Boy Floyd. I mean, he was a very handsome guy, and it got him a long way, even in, being a gangster.
Yeah. Well, let's move away from Pretty Boy, who was a good-looking person, to a bunch of people that probably weren't very good-looking with a little bless your heart. All right, number one, I'm going to call just a bit clingy.
Not just a bit outside, just a bit clingy.
Just a bit clingy.
Okay.
A man got an all-inclusive stay at Washington jail after ramming the side of an ambulance with his vehicles, officials said.
Why?
Well, an ambulance was going back to the station when a man began to get impatient with the emergency vehicle's speed, according to a news release from the Stevens County Sheriff's Office. When both vehicles reached an intersection, the man, quote, decided to confront the crew because he felt the ambulance was going too slow in front of him, the sheriff's office said. Quote, however, he did so by ramming the side of the ambulance and becoming stuck, the release said. No one was injured from the crash. The driver was arrested on suspicion of DUI after officials discovered he had a few road sodas and marijuana in his possession, cops said. According to the release, cops determined he had been under the influence of both alcohol and marijuana while driving. Quote, he got an all-inclusive stay at the Stevens County Jail, the release concluded.
He was feeling pretty brave. Yeah, this is not going fast. And, I actually had somebody, there was a ambulance or a EMS unit coming down the street, and I was turning left, and I stopped in the middle of the road just so I could see them coming, and I stopped, and the person behind me pulled up beside me, flipped me off, then honked at me, and then pulled out, and then had to pull over and realized I was stopping because there was an ambulance coming down the road.
And he's going, I'm sorry.
And I wanted to be like, I wanted to wag a finger, but I just laughed as I drove past him. So,
all right, number 2. Well, it looked real.
Okay.
A group of thieves in L.A. crashed their car into the front of a jewelry store while it was closed on Sunday and stole all of the jewelry in the front window.
We're just crashing cars all over the place.
Yep, there's security footage of them plowing into the place. Then they scooped up a bunch of rings, necklaces, and then took off. But what they didn't realize was everything they stole was just costume jewelry that was basically worthless. The owners say they caused up to $20,000 in damages in the building, and the jewelry they stole was worth about $200.
I mean, usually they take all of that out of the front windows, put it in a safe.
Here's what they did. A lot of jewelry stores put fake stuff
out.
Right, in the front window for this exact reason.
Yeah.
And luckily, it sounds like their insurance should cover the damages of the building. Cops are still looking for the idiots who did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not too bright.
Not at all. All right, number 3 and finally.
Oh,
ye of little faith. Knox County, Tennessee. A man is in custody after Knox County deputies said he told him he destroyed headstones and dug up the ground in an effort to resurrect his dead grandmother.
Okay.
According to the Knox County Sheriff's Office, deputies responded to reports of vandalism at a church at 1716 Huckleberry Springs Road around 2:30 p.m. Monday. When they arrived, they said they noticed extensive damage to the cemetery, including dug-up spots on the ground and broken headstones. Deputies said a representative with the church told them a homeless man had been staying around the property and damaging the cemetery.
Okay.
Deputies found the suspect, Danny Frazier, who they had spoken with the day before at the same locations. According to deputies, the man told them he did, in fact, damage the cemetery in an effort to resurrect his dead grandmother, who was buried at the site.
Did he get 6 feet down?
I don't know. Deputies said the man caused roughly $30,000 in damage to the cemetery. Frazier was taken into custody, is being held in the Roger D. Wilson detention facility on a $20,000 bond for felony vandalism.
Well, headstones aren't cheap, so if he broke those, and then they had to probably fix all the landscaping. But, I mean, his grandmother's going to haunt him, and if he went after anybody else in there, they're coming for him.
Yeah, well, she's spinning in her grave right now. So there's your stupid criminals.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, all you have to do is go to hitchedtohomicide.com. When you get there, there's a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can also tell us about your brush with true crime or tell us about what?
I don't know. Dead people and graves that you want to resurrect? I don't know.
Your brush with true crime or suggest a case.
There you go.
Can you tell I haven't slept in days?
You're doing great, baby.
Oh, my gosh.
You're fine.
That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful, tired bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.